subscriber. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for Inside Boxing Weekly. So here are your hosts, Mike Goodpaster, John Einreinhofer, and Jeremiah Preisser on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Weekly is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Go to Facebook, find the page. Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos do a great job there. So make sure you check out the Retired Boxers Foundation. I'm your host for the weekly boxing show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host. First up, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I am doing very, very well. I'm always excited to talk boxing with you guys. And again, I want to thank all of our listeners who tune in week in and week out. It's much appreciated.
All right. And next up, last but not least, John Einreinhofer. How you doing, John?
Mike, good to be here this week, as always.
Yeah, this week, there's actually a fight to preview that I actually want to see. So that's a good thing. That's
a rare thing. That's a rare thing in boxing nowadays.
Oh yeah, let's start off with the WBA World Light Flyweight title. That's guys that would have to gain 10 pounds to be jockeys. Carlos Canizales knocked out Ben Liu in the 12th round. It was a good fight, but I know that Jeremiah, you have some problems with them claiming Ben Liu was fighting for a world title in his second professional fight.
Well, yeah, of course I do. Whenever you're claiming a trinket as a world championship, you're going to have issues with me because holding a trinket, dished out by some corrupt organization who have rankings that are, paid off at least in part. You can't be, and not only that, the idea that you can be a world champion without beating the best to get there, I just don't, it doesn't follow suit, and I don't understand why boxing fans play along with it. They wouldn't accept it in anything else. I mean, you wouldn't have had Germany play Nigeria, and they'd be like, oh, well, this is for the World Cup. Well, part of the World Cup. The fans would have been like, what are you talking about?
Would it be all right if it was for an interim World Cup title?
Yeah, or regular. Well, yeah,
regular World Cup title.
Yeah, we are talking about Gilbert.
Whatever the hell that is. What is a regular championship, anyways? Does that mean you're the real champion?
No. It's a secondary title. That's what good old Manuel Char and Frezzo Kendo are fighting for. But it's. I mean, and if the WBA was running the World Cup, you'd probably get that. You'd probably have the next few guys be regular World Cup champions and this and that. And it just makes no damn sense. So that was my beef with it to begin with. When people are like, oh well, Ben Liu's going for a world championship in his second fight. Okay. I mean, I didn't really find a reason to get ecstatic about it. I mean, I do got to credit the guy for jumping up really quickly. I mean, Canizales is a top 10 guy. So, and Ben Liu, he had a strong amateur background, but nothing like, Vasil Lomachenko's or, Guillermo Rigondeaux, some of these guys who step up really quickly. So I got to give it to him, and he put on a good performance, and I thought he was winning the first few rounds, and, he was picking his power shots pretty nicely. His footwork was pretty good. His hand speed, like most of these guys, is pretty good. But adjusting to the pro ranks is different than, those 3-rounders in the unpaid ranks, and he got grinded down and stopped.
Yeah, and at least it was a good fight, John. We got to see a competitive fight. I know that you're one of these guys that loves the extra championships, so do you want to talk about the fight a little bit?
Well, I got to confess, I did miss that one.
It was the only fight worth seeing all weekend, John. Come on.
Forgive me. I usually catch everything, but I missed that one. But I can talk about the extra championships. Yeah, I don't know why certain people insist on discussing the sport in the alphabet context. It seems particularly bad among the British and European fans. There's some American fans that are bad as well, and
there's
some Mexican
lot.
fans.
There's a
lot.
There are, but it's not. It is. It's bad, but it's not quite as bad. It's just. I still don't get it. I actually don't get it. I mean, it's actually simple in this sport. the alphabets are making it complicated. I, of course, perfectly understand that, but it should be simple for the fans to just disregard it. It's actually a relatively simple solution, but they just refuse to do it, and a lot of the writers and commentators refuse to do it too. Now, some of them probably have biased interests, and that's why they don't do it, and some of them just don't do it out of ignorance.
All right, and then we go to another fight that I was really excited to watch. Regis Prograis stops Juan Jose Velasco in the 8th round. Now, I'll give you this, John. I really like Prograis going into it. I still think he's an exciting fighter. Velasco, I think, may have been a little tougher than what he thought he would be, but not really more skilled than we thought he would be. I was actually a little bit disappointed by this. I thought Prograis got hit a lot in this fight.
I don't think it was his best performance, but I think he's still on track. Yeah, I think he's still got good head movement. I think, and he's definitely got the power. Velasco, I think, was in there a little bit of a semi-survival mode. He wasn't in a complete survival mode where he wasn't fighting at all, or he was looking to just fall down or something like that. But he was in a bit of a survival mode. I think that made it a little bit more difficult on Prograis, but wasn't the best I've seen him look. Possibly it could be fighting in his hometown. Sometimes you see that work a little bit negatively on a fighter. Not all fighters, granted, but some where there's more distractions and they're trying to impress, so they're actually overly pressing. Could possibly be that, but I think that the body work was still impressive in the fight. So he showed really an additional dimension there. We know he has the power, but that kind of impressive body work, I think that was a plus. And I think his head movement's good. He was in against a guy that was mostly in there to survive, but I would agree that it wasn't his best performance, but I still think he's on track, and I still think he's the best 140-pound guy in the world.
Yeah, I do too. I just expected more. And I don't think that guy was trying to survive. I just think that guy did everything he could do, and he's nowhere near on the level as Prograis. I didn't see him running. I didn't see him clinching a lot. So I think we give the credit to the guy that he tried. He just was on a completely different level than what Prograis is. Jeremiah?
No, I think you guys nailed it. I mean, I think it's pretty spot on. My only concern would be that Prograis, he's going to have to take fewer shots at the top. I mean, you never know. He might turn out to have some, Librano Andrade chin, and he can take, shot after shot and not be phased. I suppose that's always possible, but he's just got to be a bit sharper sometimes, in my opinion. He's got to tighten some of the shots up, but I mean, obviously the power is there, the size is there, and when he decides to make the jump to the traditional 147-pound division, I think he'll be fine. But I actually think because of that performance, I think it will add some intrigue to the World Boxing Super Series that he's already on his way to doing. I saw that he was on a plane to Moscow. What was it, yesterday, or maybe it was this morning? I can't remember. So I do think it adds a little bit of intrigue just because he was caught. Again, Mike, like you said, more than you would like to see, man of his caliber. And Josh Taylor's an ever-improving fighter, too. He just came off the Postol win. And, Taylor's pretty sharp when he wants to be. He got caught a number of times against Postol and whatnot. But, again, he was trying to put on a performance. But Taylor's pretty defensively responsible. He's got that strong amateur background. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing both of those guys participate. But, I mean, Prograis looks real good. You just got to sharpen it up a little bit.
All right, and then we go to Manny Pacquiao, who dominated Lucas Matisse, who was either way over the hill or really disinterested or whatever. He stops him in the 7th round. Let's talk about the fight first, Jeremiah. And to me, this doesn't mean Manny Pacquiao's back. It is not to bash on him. But he was fighting a Lucas Matisse who couldn't get out of the way. He's undersized compared to Pacquiao. And, I mean, Pacquiao may not have huge power fighting 147-pounders, but against a guy like Matisse, he does. So I don't think this means Manny Pacquiao's back. I don't think this means he's going to beat up Keith Thurman or Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford. It was a good performance for what it was, but this was a guy that was tailor-made for him.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I said in my Monday article that I think it's going to be a mismatch. I mean, the people who thought, I saw a sizable number of people who are picking Matisse, and you're always going to get that no matter what. Especially when you patrol the dense traffic of social media. I didn't see a size issue. I actually think Matisse's the natural bigger guy, and I think if we had only 8 divisions or 9 divisions, I think Matisse would have been just fine at welterweight. His entire career. I mean, when he fought Mike Dallas Jr., he was 163 pounds going into the fight. So I think he was a bulky guy, but it's just he's taken too much punishment mentally. He just wasn't there. He had a little bit of a rough outing with Ruslan Provodnikov. He had obviously packed it in a few times. And it was just the fight before that really had me believing that this was stylistically an easy one for Manny Pacquiao because he looked bad against Karam. I mean, he let the guy jab him and toss right hands at him for a good number of rounds, and he wasn't that adaptive. He looked trigger hesitant. He looked old, and Pacquiao, even at his age, 39 years old, which is really damn old for somebody who started out as small as he did. And I know he started out as a teenager and whatnot, but naturally Pacquiao is really, 135 pounder. So yeah, it just picked him apart. I mean, he was just too fast. He was too fast. But what I found surprising, I can say this about Pacquiao's game plan, is the rate and the potency of his jab. Pacquiao is known for throwing a jab, but a lot of times it's just there to, the left hand straight follows it up, So again, he's just using it more as a way of distracting you and then nailing you on the chin. But he was throwing it with some real conviction in there, and I gotta give it to him. I mean, I really like seeing that, even if it's against a guy who's not that defensively responsible. But yeah, he was just too quick, and he's just. Sure. Pacquiao's been hit a good number of times throughout his career, but he's also a guy who has good defense when he wants to. He's got good footwork. His angles are solid. And he just took it to Matisse, stopped him. I think I predicted a late stoppage. This was not quite what I predicted. I thought it would be a little bit later, but I think I predicted a late stoppage in the last show. And yeah, it was good. But Pacquiao, he's not back. We got to. Funny enough, he still is arguably a top 5 welterweight. I mean, even this stage of Pacquiao's career, I wouldn't give him a bad chance against a guy like Danny Garcia. But right, he's not back. He's not going to be beating the elite of the elite, but it's a good performance, and it adds to his already legendary resume.
Yeah, and John, the thing that bothered me was ESPN's coverage, which always bothers me. But when they put up something showing that Lucas Matisse is the 9th-ranked welterweight in the world, that is an absolute joke.
Yeah, I think that this. I thought about that going into the fight. I think this is where transnational, which of course Jeremiah's on the panel, really serves their purpose because Matisse was he's promoted by Golden Boy, cracked the Ring welterweight ratings at the bottom of it. Then he's in ESPN's and ESPN's got a relationship with Top Rank and the ESPN Plus thing, and that's what Pacquiao's fighting on. And he hasn't been in transnationals welterweight rankings, I don't believe, for a while. And he didn't belong in there. So I think, it's like I always said, I still like the Ring. I think the Ring serves a purpose. Like to look at it. Glad they're still around. They have their ratings, but you need transnational there as a check. And I wanted to point that out for this fight. This is one in recent memory where it was important to me. If you follow things like this, and really you should if you're a boxing fan, forget the alphabet stuff, transnational served their role because Matisse is not a top 10 welterweight, and he'd all of a sudden creeped in there in the Ring, and he creeped in there in ESPN's rankings.
Well,
so
my
I
guess,
think transnational.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, real quick. But wouldn't he have to be ranked in the top 10 for them to make up a WBA World Welterweight title fight?
Well, he's supposedly the WBA regular welterweight champion.
Exactly.
Whatever that is.
Stupid. It's
so,
stupid. I mean, who did he beat to win that?
Ridiculous.
I don't even remember. Do you remember?
It was Karab. It was
the
Karam
guy for the vacant WBA regular. I mean, tell me that wasn't set up. That's why if you can't be smart enough to ignore that, I mean, if you're a writer, a commentator, a fan, I mean, you got to question yourself. What are you thinking of? So I think, and for Pacquiao, for me, what I can give him a little bit of credit on is usually when you get two guys 35, over 35, here Pacquiao 39, Matisse 35, like I said, you get the sparring session thing where usually even the guy that's dominant won't even try for the knockout. At least Pacquiao got him out of there. I'm going to give him that. And I'm going to say for the performance at 39, he's a legitimate top 10 welterweight. But that's it, a legitimate top 10 welterweight. People want to make it out to be all kinds of things that it's not, all kinds of, frankly, ridiculous things. And it's just simply a top 10 welterweight. Of course, that's not exciting marketing-wise, and that's why Top Rank helping him out and ESPN Plus helping him out. They don't want you to look at it that way, but that's the way you should be looking at it. So, okay, so we've got, welterweight. I still think it's a tougher division, than Mike and Jeremiah do, but Pacquiao, he makes the top 10. He does for me. Even in 8 divisions, he makes it. But okay, and a good achievement for a 39-year-old guy. But that doesn't mean we should be paying pay-per-view prices for him or paying for him on ESPN Plus or whatever. Aram and Top Rank, because they're still distributing Pacquiao, even though he's supposedly some kind of a free agent now or whatever. Want us to believe. So, at 39, he's a top 10 welterweight. What does that mean? Mike and I had talked off the air about it, and it means he's going to ultimately be sacrificed to the cash out at some point if he continues. It's not going to be a glorious ending for the Pacquiao legion of fans if this continues. The best he could do marketing-wise and competitive-wise, and I'm going to even say it probably, if they put it on regular ESPN, it does well. If they try to sell it, it does not. Just put him in against Horn again. But if you try to put him in with Crawford, he's going to get annihilated. If you try to, in theory, it's cross-promotional. It's not going to happen. But if he was in with Spence, he'd get blown out. So what are we talking about here? He's not the top of the division. He's top 10 welterweight. So, okay, I guess if he has to pay off the IRS, put him in with Horn on regular ESPN, but they'll try to charge for it or something like that, and they'll get no buys. And,
yeah, but see, the
we
problem
can talk
is
about
this,
that later
John,
in the show.
if they put him in against Horn's a tough fight for him no matter what, just because Horn's so big and physical. And the problem is, if Pacquiao does beat Horn, then they're still going to feed him to one of those guys. But you're going to feed him to him after he's had,
right.
A physical test against Horn, which, I mean, come on. I'd much rather saw Jeff Horn, Manny Pacquiao than Lucas Matisse and Manny Pacquiao.
I would have too. I think that boxing missed a big opportunity there. I don't know what the heck with Aram and Pacquiao and how it all played out. I think Aram, frankly, was alphabet belt obsessed. He controls the WBO. He had to have Crawford pick up that WBO belt. And I really think that's what happened there. I mean, that just wasn't necessary. Pacquiao, I think, intelligently, unless the money part gets to him and it's just too high of a payday, he doesn't want to be in with Crawford, which is smart. But yeah, you're right. That's the thing. If he ekes by Horn in a rematch, which I'm not saying he definitely would, that at this stage of his career, that might be a close one, right? Because he just got older. But he could possibly win it. It's within his reach. It would be a good way to go out. But you're right. Then he won't, because he can try to get a payday against somebody else, and that's how it always ends up bad for these fighters in boxing. Which Pacquiao seems well on his way to that being his ending.
So I actually think there's a third option here, because the talk is that either it's Crawford or it's going to be Lomachenko.
I think it's
well, I mean, it may be. Well, I mean, there has been rumors circulating that Keith Thurman might sign with Eddie Hearn. And that would open up the door to that. Let me backcheck real quick though, because I wanted to touch on John's point. I didn't know that that Lucas Matisse was rated by the Ring magazine before that fight. I did know the ESPN part, just because I thought it was hilarious, to be honest with you. And then ESPN also has, as a note, Deontay Wilder at number 9 pound for pound, and I'm not kidding. Go check it out. Well, don't give them the web traffic. Just take my word for it, or go on Twitter. I mentioned it there. And they have Anthony Joshua number 10. So ESPN's not really doing well for themselves in terms of rankings. But I guess Keith Thurman is potentially another option if Bob Arum's not going to sacrifice him to one of his superstars in Lomachenko or Crawford. I would not be surprised if Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather had a rematch. And I don't want to see that at all. But with Floyd Mayweather's opportunism, him saying that Manny Pacquiao had a good outing, he's got some bullshit trinket around his waist now, and they could make big money, with all the people out there saying, this is some sort of minor revival for Manny Pacquiao and he's looking good. I wouldn't be surprised if Floyd Mayweather's like, let's do a rematch. Let's sucker these idiots for more dollars. And then they cash out. And in that, in a way, you'd sort of be happy for Pacquiao because he wouldn't take much punishment, and he'd make the most money that he possibly could. But of course, it's a joke.
Yeah, but my question is this. I would give Pacquiao more of a chance now than a couple of years ago because Mayweather hasn't really been in a fight. And since he is a guy that's more of a timing guy, the fact that he hadn't been in a real fight in, 2, 3, 4 years? I mean, maybe Mayweather now has, outaged this fight.
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think it could happen because I've seen actual business projections where, and I think these are reasonable, even though you don't, in a way, you don't want to believe it. I think it's probably reasonable. They project that even now, if they have a rematch, that they could probably do half of the first fight. And, Arum and Heyman and all these guys are going to see that and say, hey, with what's going on in boxing, all the troubles there are now, having big fights, nobody's selling on pay-per-view, making half of the first Pacquiao Mayweather takes looking real good right now for all those people, including Pacquiao and Mayweather. So, and that's one way to get the IRS paid off because if Pacquiao gets decent paydays but not big paydays, he's not going to be able to pay the IRS off because you get taxed on what you make along the way. It's hard to do that. And there's been rumors that Mayweather owes IRS money too. That could very well be substantial rumors. So I don't think you can discount it. I think it's still within the realm of possibility for those reasons.
Well, and imagine if Manny Pacquiao won. What then? Do you get it? There you go.
Yeah, you know what happens then. You got 3, and nobody's getting hurt in these fights most likely either.
Hey,
so,
but guys, with what we have to watch every weekend, I would probably be one of the more exciting fights of the year so far.
Yeah, it's so bad that
it's
not looking as bad. It's not looking that bad. It's so bad.
And maybe if Mayweather slowed down, maybe you actually get a fight. I wouldn't pay $50 or $100 to see it, but I'll find an illegal stream and watch it at Jeremiah's house, not at my house. I just wanted to bring it up for anybody listening.
That's fine. I'll accept that.
And my thing is this. The thing that really drives me nuts is how now Manny Pacquiao is, an 11 or 12-time champion?
Oh, it's 11.
Is it 11? And this isn't
11.
even a real title belt. And the thing that's funny is we talk about fans in the States, but it's not just fans. I mean, I had Craig Houck, who, if anybody's ever heard of Craig Houck, his glorious moment in his 68-30 career was he knocked down Hector Camacho when Camacho was like 40 years old, and then Camacho got up and knocked him out. But since me and John fought with him, trying to say that, he only really was a 3 or 4-time champion, and this meant nothing, he unfriended me, John, because he said that he didn't like the way we disrespected him.
I just want to say, one thing, and look, Mayweather has these people, Pacquiao does, Canelo's probably got some, Golovkin. But I'll tell you, it's nothing against Pacquiao, but when I saw some of the things Pacquiao fans were saying after that fight and before that fight, those kind of people get annoying. I mean, they really are annoying.
I mean,
it's like a cult. It's like a cult or something.
Yeah, he beat up Lucas Matisse. So, and this is the thing. I think over the last 20 years, Manny Pacquiao is the most accomplished boxer we've had. If you look at the people he beat, I would put him ahead of Mayweather when you're talking about resume. So, he's an all-time great. And see, that's what I tell people like this, but, I mean, it's Craig. So if you know Craig, you know where that's going anyways, because BS is probably his middle name. So.
Oh, yeah, and it's whatever's coming out of his mouth is a bit like his hairline, you know that.
Yeah, not there.
I remember.
wait a second, John, you got to hear this story. Did you watch the video on our Facebook page with the guy getting his toupee knocked up and it fell back down on his head?
No, I didn't see that. It sounds like an old Howard Cosell incident, but I didn't see that.
We were looking into the career of this guy, and in 1994 when he fought Meldrick Taylor, it was Meldrick Taylor, right, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Yeah, he fought Meldrick Taylor, and he was bald. Just a little bit of hair on the sides. You fast forward and watch the film of him fighting Camacho the first time in 1996, and he has a full head of hair. And it's amazing, how that happened. But the funny thing is, he's bald. He's running around with a toupee on, which is really sad. But let's go ahead, Jeremiah, or John, go ahead and finish your thought.
The only thing I want to add before I forget while we're talking about Pacquiao is, but it's very important in keeping this in perspective. Remember, Matisse had the same performance against Postol a couple of years ago. I mean, he's already had this performance. So, and Postol has not done well since. I'm not saying it's because he was in with Matisse, but it makes you then question a little bit even what Matisse was bringing to the table then, because Postol was dominated by Crawford and dropped twice, got dropped by an unknown in the fight after Crawford, and then he got dropped by Josh Taylor. So, even though he fought hard against Taylor, I mean, he hasn't been particularly successful since. So when you're trying to evaluate performances, and in this case it's Pacquiao, you got to look at things like that and to keep in proper perspective.
All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the fights coming up this week. There's two of them. One of them is huge. The other one will probably be a bloodletting. We'll start off with the bloodletting. We got Liam Smith going to the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, to take on Jaime Munguia. When you look at this fight, John, does Liam Smith have a chance here? I know we haven't seen much of Munguia, but we've seen a lot of Smith, which makes me think that Smith probably doesn't have much of a chance.
I don't think Smith has any chance here, Mike. I think he's going to get blown out, and I think it could be within 3 rounds here. I don't think that Smith's probably going to get through the third. I mean, I'm a believer in Canelo as a fighter, but, one of Canelo's deficiencies is that he's not aggressive for what his skill level is against overmatched opposition, which Liam Smith would fall into that category. Munguia is, and I think Munguia hits harder than Canelo and he's bigger than Canelo. Doesn't mean I'm saying right now he's a better all-around fighter than Canelo, but Munguia is going to go out there to try to hurt you, and he's got size and he's got power, and he's not going to be messing around with Liam Smith taking his time or anything like that. Liam Smith doesn't have power. We saw him against Liam Williams taking all kinds of shots, and Liam Williams just seems to be a guy that is lacking in confidence. He's got some skills and some hand speed, and he just doesn't seem to be a guy that will fully assert himself, and that's how Liam Smith got by. I don't even think he won either of those fights, but he got by with the judges. In the second fight with William Williams, he had to box him a bit. He's got mediocre boxing skills. I just don't see, he's not going to be able to move enough if he tries to box Munguia. If he tries to get close to him, which he did some against Canelo, and like I said, I think that comes to Canelo's lack of aggression, letting him hang around even for as long as he did. I don't think Munguia is going to tolerate that. So, even though different weight class, different fighters, but Inoue and McDonald pops into my head on this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something along those lines.
Yeah, I think you're looking at a second or third round knockout too, Jeremiah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you are looking at a second or third round knockout, and Smith is going to perform it against Manguia. I mean, I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
We haven't had a prediction like that since Shabransky over Kovalev.
And next year, Jeremiah's going to start talking about Liam Smith being a two-time world champion.
Two-time, baby, two-time. Yeah. Well, yeah. He won the. That's actually what part of the lawsuit is about. Frost and Trout in the WBO is that he got skipped over in the WBO rankings, and Liam Smith ended up occupying the top spot, and then he ended up winning the vacant trinket against who was it, Liam Williams or something? I can't remember, but yeah, that's the thing, is that Liam Smith is, a one division title holder. So yeah, you'll have a lot of people pumping his resume up if he somehow found a way to win this fight, but no. Munguia looks too physical. He looks too skilled. Liam Smith, like his brothers, they like to put the earmuffs on, and they don't move their head well enough. If you're doing that, if you're going to try to be aggressive against a guy who's bigger and stronger than you, hits harder than you, is better skilled than you, it's not going to turn out well for you. And Liam Smith, he seems like a nice guy, and kudos to him for taking the fight, and I hope he comes up prepared. I hope he gives it his all, but it just stylistically, this looks like a bad matchup for him. And funny enough, I mean, credit to John. Hey, when they were talking about when the athletic commission was like, no, Golovkin, you cannot fight Munguia. It's too big of a mismatch. Vanes Martirosyan is better suited. After watching Munguia, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, because Munguia still has a lot of proving to do. Stopping, a natural welterweight in Saddam Ali, it was a good feat, we got to give him credit for that. But I actually think that Munguia would beat Vanes Martirosyan, so maybe they messed up a little bit there. But yeah, it's a stoppage, probably, early, like John said. I'm not sure exactly what round, but it's just a bad styles matchup for him.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Munguia yet. Let me see him beat somebody pretty good, and then I will, but he hasn't yet, because Saddam Ali, not real impressed, but it is a good win. I mean, an old Miguel Cotto couldn't beat him, but I think Munguia could be the real deal. I don't think we find that out this week or not, though, unless we find out that he's not, but I don't think.
But they want him to be.
He's a Mexican.
Exactly, and you can pump him up and get him against Saul Alvarez, and maybe sell that in Mexico or a place that's populated with a lot of Mexicans, and make a lot of money. Yeah.
I think it'll sell. I think it'll sell anyway, though, because I think Munguia is for real, and he's got power. Obviously, down the road, the Canelo fight could be huge. It'll be a fight people want to see. I think if HBO's AT&T's got them now, and we're going to see what's going to happen there, but the money's available. If they're picking their spots, I mean, if they want to go with guys like Golovkin, Canelo, Munguia, Jacobs, I mean, that's still not bad to go with. I mean, of course, we got to see them fighting each other eventually, but it's not, you look at guys who have talent, that's not, and exciting fighters, that's not a bad core to go with, and I think they've rightfully got Munguia slated for being in that mix.
Hey, you know what I'd like to see? Sorry, real quick, is if they really want to put this guy as a potential opponent for Canelo Alvarez, move him up to 160, a real class. Put him against David Lemieux, who's under Golden Boy Promotions, another guy who's at least we know he's a big puncher. I mean, his technique's pretty good. Have him fight him, and he probably scores a knockout against Lemieux, and then there you go. I just think that would be a good way of building it and also creating excitement at the same time.
All right. I really don't want to see that fight that much either, but it's all right, I guess. It's better than Liam Smith. Season 1 of the World Boxing Super Series is, of course, coming to a close. The first two championship finals, arguably the best championship final, and I think the best matchup of the year so far in boxing. Alexander Usyk will take on Usyk-Gassiev for the undisputed Cruiserweight Championship of the world. Of course, that's until 3 days later when all four organizations will probably strip whoever won. This is a hell of a matchup, John. I mean, this, to me, is damn near a 50-50 fight.
Yeah, it is, and the odds makers say it is. So you've got the experts agreeing. I also agree. It arguably is the best matchup we're going to get all year. I still look at it in a traditional type sense. For me, really, it's just about who's going to emerge as a heavyweight contender. Heavyweight's the glamour division. Always traditionally the most popular division in boxing. These guys are both 6'3". They can easily compete at heavyweight. So I think that's where the cruiserweight part doesn't necessarily capture the imagination worldwide. So I'm just looking at it. Which one of these guys is going to come out on top with a good performance, and really with the weakness in the heavyweight division, be near the top of the division, be one of the guys that we're going to be most interested in pursuing a fight with Joshua or Wilder down the road. And I think even if the loser performs well, I think the loser can also still be in that mix. I picked, Gassiev at the beginning of the tournament. I think against Dorticos, he showed that he's got even more dimensions as a fighter than we thought he had going into the tournament. So I like him even better now. And I thought that was one of the fights of the year. And, Usyk's a very talented guy, but I think he's leveled off a little bit. Strangely enough, a fight you thought maybe was one of his lesser fights now against Michael Hunter is looking a little better as Hunter has surprisingly looked good at heavyweight recently. So, we know Usyk's got talent and he's got that amateur pedigree, but Gassiev's only 24. He's getting better all the time. I think Usyk's leveled off a little bit. For a big guy, he can hurt you, but he's not really banging with that much authority for the upper weights. And I think Gassiev is going to have enough to come out on top of this one, and he's going to be a threat at heavyweight.
All right, this is the way I see the fight, Jeremiah. Tell me if I'm wrong or not. Against Dorticos, the thing I noticed is Dorticos would let Gassiev kind of do what he wants. I think this is a fight where Usyk against Briedis, I think, was probably the worst I've seen him, because he's usually an effective aggressor. He stalks his opponent. He's got great boxing ability. I don't think he did that so much in that fight back in January. So I think this whole fight comes down to whether Alexander Usyk is the aggressor. If I think he's the aggressor, Dorticos to me let Gassiev throw the punches. I think if Usyk will advance on him, I think Usyk wins this fight.
Well, I think if that was Usyk in there with Gassiev that night, I think Usyk would have won too. But I that's why I favor Usyk, not only because he can be an aggressor, which he's mostly been for his last few fights. Like the Hunter fight, the Huck fight, the Briedis fight. He's chosen to come forward, and I think in his last fight he threw something like 800 plus punches, which is pretty impressive for cruiserweight. But why I favor Usyk is because he's more versatile than Gassiev is, and we often forget, even because Usyk's recent performances, he has been the come forward guy. But if you go back to the Glowacki fight, he was the boxer. He was the mover. He was feinting. He was jabbing. He was countering him with left hands. That's what I really like from the guy. I mean, like John said, he's not a big puncher. He's not going to get you out of there with one shot. But the fact that he can box on his toes if he wants to, the fact that he can come forward and get it if he wants to, and he's shown a good chin so far. I mean, he's taken a good number of shots, and I haven't seen him, phased really at all. I mean, I've certainly seen him feel some of those shots, but I haven't seen him wobble or teeter or totter, any of that stuff. So again, so he can smother you with volume. He can punch a little bit, or he can box in his toes. And not only that, I know that he's had some flat performances, and I can see that if he gets in Gassiev's wheelhouse, he's got some risk there, because Gassiev is a sharper puncher than anybody Usyk has fought. He's a harder puncher than anybody Usyk has fought. But I also look to Lebedev's for performance against. I look to Gassiev's performance against Lebedev, and I saw him struggle a little bit with a southpaw. And so that, you can see things, you can read into all, some of these performances by other guys and think to yourself like, oh, okay, well, I see why this guy would have a leg up, or I see why that guy would have a leg up. But for me, it's Usyk's versatility that I think give him the edge. I don't know what the betting odds are right now, but if they're there, I'm probably going to say that Usyk would be a slight favorite in these, and maybe it's because the betting guys do see that he is better rounded. I think his chin is more proven. Gassiev did take some decent shots against Ortikos, but he blocked the vast majority of them. He slipped a lot of them. I didn't see Ortikos land a bunch of clean shots there. But I think Usyk can win how he likes to win. If he chooses to smother Gassiev, I think he will be dictating the pace. I don't think it will be as easy for Gassiev to counter in that. But I would also like to see how Usyk boxes and moves, and see if maybe he can get him with his feints, his jab. See if he can maybe counter him. I don't know. But like you touched on, Mike, this is for the Cruiserweight Championship of the world. I could frankly give a damn about all the trinkets attached to it, because
they are 1 and 2.
Absolutely, right. And that's what boxing fans want to see. That's what's most important here. Not the fact that the IBF will probably say, "Hey, well, you got to sign to fight, some fringe level guy in 30 days, or we're going to take it away like they've done with so many other guys." Who cares? Whoever wins this fight is the man. That's what's most important. And we're getting a 1 and 2 50-50 fight. I mean, the year's been damn near a desert in terms of having top level matchups, and this breaks the mold. It's refreshing, and not only that, like John said, I did want to touch on that too, is whoever wins here, and especially if it's competitive, I think they're going to be players in the heavyweight division. There's just not enough there at heavyweight to say, hey, neither one of these guys are going to be able to contend. I mean, you look at 1 and 2. I mean, it's not as if 1 and 2 are necessarily all that special either. But then you got an old Povetkin, you got an old Joshua. Obviously, those guys need to be replaced. Well, who are they going to be replaced by? Where's the new lifeblood going to be? It's not Joseph Parker. We see what level he's on already. It's not going to be Andy Ruiz. We see what level he's on already. There's just not a lot to look forward to there, except if Gassiev and Usyk make their mark, make the jump, and then, again, they can build towards something else. I mean, because we're really going to need something after Joshua and Wilder fight, which they will. And these two just inject new lifeblood into it. I'm looking forward to it, but it's a good fight, and I'm glad it's finally here.
Well, I think whichever guy wins, especially if it's impressive, should be top 5 pound for pound.
Yeah, I would agree. The reason I say so is because if you look at 1, 2, and 3, the general consensus is it's Golovkin, Lomachenko, and Crawford, not necessarily in that order. And then you have, Mikey Garcia, who has done a lot of trinket grabbing and weight hopscotching, but he really hasn't fought a real challenge. Lipinets is a good fighter. He's fought a number of ranked guys, but nobody who would really push him. And then you have Inoue, who is also, he looks good, but he hasn't really fought anybody who would push him either.
Well, I guess the resumes from guys below number 3 or 4 pound for pound are nowhere near what these guys have done in the last year.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that these guys have been taking out top, legitimately ranked opponents, and then they've built towards this. Yeah, it's more than you can say for Garcia or Inoue or especially a guy like Errol Spence or a number of these guys.
Yeah, and I think, John, whichever one of these guys win, especially if it's impressive, I'd put him in the top 3 in the heavyweight division right away.
That's the way I'm looking at it. I think that if one of these two guys is real impressive Saturday, you've got Joshua Wilder, and then again, I don't worry about
really.
his
We've
junior
got
divisions,
nothing there, John. Just admit it. There's nothing there. I think Gassiev or Usyk, I would favor to beat either one of the two guys that are supposed to be 1-2. I just think they're more talented. And the other thing about them is, I watched the WBCC preview show tonight. They both look like 225-pound heavyweights, especially Usyk.
They are. They have that size.
Yeah.
But I am in agreement in the sense of what you're saying, that for me, it's Joshua and Wilder, but then the winner of this fight, as long as it's a good performance, is going to be right there. I mean, these guys are 6'3". No reason they shouldn't make that move immediately. I think if both of them perform well, I think they both should, and I welcome it. That's why I think cruiserweight might be one division we need, but the fact is that anybody that's ever been very good at cruiserweight could fight at heavyweight, and I think that's what takes away from it is, heavyweight's always been the glamour division and the division traditionally that's driven boxing. So, the winner of this fight should be there immediately. I'm not worried about their unified, like Jeremiah said, who cares about all the belts? I mean, it's the 1 and 2 at cruiserweight. That's a good thing. But I want the talk of the winner of this at heavyweight immediately afterward. I think that they would have a case for the number 3 spot very soon. And I think if the loser performs well, the loser could be right there in this heavyweight division. So, and that helps boxing. So that's really the way I hope that this would play out from the beginning of the tournament. It's got a chance to do that. And that's the talk I'd like to hear, Sunday morning already. And I don't want to hear speculation about somebody needing to stay at cruiserweight and defend against so-and-so. Let's immediately forget that kind of nonsense if anybody wants to talk that way and start talking about these guys at heavyweight.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say another angle that we should talk about, just so we're all on board here, is that what you would have the linear cruiserweight champion of the world, undoubtedly, against Wilder and Joshua is going to happen. Say what you want about Povetkin. Well, granted that Wilder and Joshua both win. Again, I know Brazil and I know Povetkin have slim chances, but I'm a little bit younger. But even in my lifetime, I've seen Lennox Lewis upset by Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. I've seen Klitschko knocked off by Brewster and Corey Sanders. And both those heavyweights are better than Joshua. And I'm not convinced all those guys are better than Povetkin. They are probably all better than Wilder. They are probably all better than Brazil. But that's my point. Something could happen. But in an ideal world, what you would have is Joshua and Wilder squaring off, which will happen. Granted, they get through their next fights. So you'd have the linear cruiserweight champion against the linear heavyweight champion. That's got to excite people, right? That's a good sell.
I think the cruiserweight division is needed because of this, John. How many cruiserweights have really been successful going into heavyweight? You had Evander Holyfield, and with Holyfield, his weight was 175 coming out of the Olympics. He was fighting at 185, 186. He kind of grew and steroided into a heavyweight. That's not a shot on him because I think he's my favorite fighter probably the last 30 years because every time you paid to see him fight, you saw a fight. But outside of him and Michael Moore, I mean, nobody's really been successful. I mean, David Haye looked like a bitch when he challenged for the title against Klitschko. I mean,
Jean-Marc Mormick. Jean-Marc Mormick was a champion, the champion of cruiserweight, and he really didn't do much at heavyweight.
He was a good fighter. I mean, I'm not going to give him any crap. And David Haye was a good fighter, but the only guys that really moved up, I think, from cruiserweight that were successful, correct me if I'm wrong, John, because I have a blank spot in the last 15 years. But Holyfield and Moore, to me, were the only two that really moved up and were real successful.
But look, Moore skipped it and won the linear heavyweight title. Michael Spinks skipped it and won the linear heavyweight title. Holyfield, he won the linear heavyweight title. David Haye became a legit top 10 heavyweight. Thomas Adamek became a legit top 10 heavyweight. Guys, if you're if you're, truly a good fighter at the top of the cruiserweight division, you're going to be able to crack the heavyweight top 10.
Well, you are in the last 15 years, but when there was actually a decent heavyweight division, Thomas Adamek's not getting in the top 10.
Well, Adamek's a good fighter. I mean, he was light heavyweight, belt holder as well. I mean, guy's a good fighter. I mean, he had to go up against, Klitschko. I mean, that's a tough.
Well, I guess to me, I'm talking about guys that won the heavyweight championship. I wasn't even thinking about light heavyweights. I was just thinking about heavyweights from the mid '80s on, because Michael Spinks. I mean, who's he going to fight in 1986 at cruiserweight? Unless he has a rematch with Dwight Muhammad Qawi, and there's no way he wants to.
Right, but the point was that Spinks and Moore didn't even need it. I mean, they skipped it and won the linear heavyweight title. So, that's because of the level of fighter they were. So what I'm saying is, for Usyk and Gassiev, who are 6'3", luckily they're fighting each other. That's good. And Dorticos proved he can fight. But let's get the training wheels off, and let's get up to heavyweight, which is not strong right now overall. And let's take the stand. Let's not be talking about unified cruiserweight belts and pulling somebody staying around for some cruiserweight defense or some European fan saying it's time to defend to go on.
I think the only way you'll see that out of these guys is if this is a great fight and maybe there's a rematch.
Yeah. Well, I would say that you might see it if you see something a bit unusual. I mean, imagine if Sergey Kovalev wanted to make the jump to cruiserweight. I think that would be some incentive to stay. And they are going to be playing the waiting game at least a little while Joshua and Wilder figure it out. But I would prefer in the meantime they just jump up to heavyweight, get their bodies accustomed a little bit, and then they'd all be good to go. But I could see, right, if Kovalev jumped up, that would be an interesting challenge.
Well,
you don't see that all that often.
Back.
Yeah, right.
Those would both be probably
you still
right there. We're talking about
four
guys that are top 10 heavyweights.
You still might see Andre Ward. You still might see Andre Ward come back as a heavyweight. I think that's another scenario.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he beat them all.
Yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Well, as all three of us have agreed, and we were right on that, frankly, when you watch him fight, he would have beaten Joseph Parker. If he could have, he would have taken that fight.
I think from what I've seen, I wouldn't bet against Andre Ward against any heavyweight I've seen, because Andre Ward is a great fighter, borderline all-time great fighter. I think he is, just from the Super 6, what he did, dominated everybody. I wouldn't bet against Andre Ward against Wilder or Joshua.
Well, I've seen the projected odds on him against Joshua, and he's only about a 6-1 underdog, which, that's significant, but it's not like people would think that, he's some sort of 20-1 underdog or even a 10-1 underdog. He's an underdog, but not anything out of the realm of possibility. Less of an underdog than, Joseph Parker was fighting Joshua, for example, and less of an underdog than Povetkin is fighting Joshua right now. So, that's kind of along the lines of what you're thinking.
Yeah, I would give Kovalev a shot against them both, too, but we all know what I think of the heavyweight division right now. I just want to see somebody beat up Jarrell Big Baby Miller since he decided to run his mouth at Joshua.
Yeah, you know who he's going for now?
Who, Big Baby?
Artur. Yeah. So that was news today, actually, that he's in the running to fight Artur Spilka in Chicago on October 6th. So, yeah, that's a good alternative to
Spilka.
Yeah.
So Eddie Hearn's giving us Miller against a guy that got knocked out by Kanatsky already.
It'll be a punching bag until the bag falls down.
Yeah, so it's just it's just ridiculous. Well, that does tie in with what I did want to talk about, which is don't want to say the sky is falling, but it is in boxing. I think that with this DAZN thing, Cloud TV, ESPN Plus, HBO, Showtime, pay-per-view, all the other charges, I think boxing's in big trouble. I think this fragmentation could put it under. You're just not going to have any kind of concentration of viewership in enough spots at the same time. And I think that this is really seriously bad news. And, unless PBC can maybe suck it up for a late rally and somehow find enough resources to get back to maybe at least semi what they were trying to do, I don't think the future's looking very bright because it's so fragmented that none of these guys are going to be fighting each other. You see evidence of that already with fights like Spielka and Miller being talked about. Hearn's got no opponent for Andrade. He's got no, Jesse Vargas Granados. I mean, is anybody going to pay $9.99 for Jesse Vargas Granados?
That'll actually probably be a good fight.
Yeah, nobody will get hurt, but
nobody will get hurt.
There'll be a lot of flailing.
Probably be a lot of blood.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's not that things haven't been fading and hasn't been a lot of trouble anyway, but it's sound the alarm time. I was trying to get a little bit optimistic when you had the Canelo Triple G2, to me, sort of work out under all the circumstances and difficulties were there. And then there was talk that maybe Joshua Wilder was going to happen, but I don't know. I'm not even sure Hearn's going to go for Joshua Wilder.
I don't think it'll happen. I think that and Jeremiah had this conversation. I think he's setting this up. I think both sides are setting this up. They're not fighting in April. I think Jarrell Miller's going to fight Joshua, and I think that Wilder's going to fight somebody, and they're going to drag this out until they think they have enough people interested. And I don't think anybody's ever going to be that interested. I mean, I don't think this fight is under 1 million pay-per-view buys. And until you can make Joshua a big name in this country, the only way they become a big fight that sells a couple million is if they fight, and the first fight is an absolute war, and then everybody wants to see him fight again.
Well, and Hearn's making it worse because Showtime, the pay-per-view buys are actually going to potentially go down now. And I'll be happy to tell you my reason why is because Espinoza and Showtime had cut a deal that was good for them with Joshua, where they were at least trying to build him up. They were showing him live on the U.S. in the afternoon, and his numbers were not good. They were like 330,000 or something like that.
They're never good at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, no, John.
Well, whatever the reason might be, the numbers were not good. Wilder was doing over 1 million. Now you're putting Joshua Povetkin on DAZN for $9.99. Nobody in the U.S. knows who Joshua is. Nobody in the U.S. knows who, outside of hardcore boxing, knows who Povetkin is.
How do you get DAZN? Is it even in this country? Is it going to be in this country by then?
It's going to be in this country. It's Canada right now. It's going to be in this country.
Yeah, but is it something where it's going to be a streaming thing? You can get on Fire or Roku?
It's a streaming thing.
Now, what do they show outside of boxing? I really am interested in this. I want to know what they show.
Rugby.
If they show rugby, NFL, my ass is in at $9.99 a month. But with rugby,
they have the NFL in Canada, but it's in Canada only.
Yeah.
So there you go. But Canada only.
Here.
So
but do they show any other sports that are halfway interesting?
Well, overseas, but this is their problem: is that they have no American rights deals nor properties available in the United States. Which here's the problem with all these deals: the zone does not care about boxing. Even ESPN Plus really doesn't. What they're doing is they don't have the properties they want available for their streaming services to try to attract these younger viewers who are cutting the cable cord. So they're just taking boxing and combat sports as a filler, okay, in the meantime. And that's what I think people need to understand about this. They've got no long-term interest in boxing or MMA. This is just filler for these services while they're trying to see if they can get in a position to bid on rights fees for other properties. So they've got no interest in the sport anyway. And it's just, to me, it's just a disaster. It's just a disaster that's not waiting to happen. It's starting to happen already. And, more fragmentation and more pay for watching fights, two of the things we need the least in boxing. And it's all, coming to fruition this week, and I just think it looks really, really bad. Hearn, all these fights are PBA guys against these guys. Hearn, for the most part, is signed already. So, he's going to be digging up graves looking for opponents for these guys, and you're supposed to pay $9.99 for it. He doesn't care about building Joshua up in the U.S. because he's putting him on this DAZN with Povetkin. I know, you can see Showtime's angry because they had some investment in him, but their deal expired. I thought it was a longer-term deal myself, but apparently it was not. Hearn had options on it. I read about that later on, and he's taking the option, in my opinion, making a really bad move because Joshua is just going to be a UK figure. He's not going to be worldwide. He's not going to be anybody in the U.S. And even if it's in different ways like Vegas site fees and things we don't always see, the U.S. still generates the most money. That's just a fact. And Hearn's not taking advantage of any of it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find out what they show other than that. And there's really nothing there that it shows.
Yeah, I think they show rugby.
I don't know. I don't see it so far. If you show me some rugby, I get to watch the All Blacks. I might be in, but I'm not in if it's just boxing. I'm all right with the ESPN app because I like the other stuff they show. They show me CFL football that I can't see. They showed me rugby from Australia and South Africa. I actually like that stuff. I'll pay for something that's more than just a one event. But if it's not, if I want to see Joshua Povetkin, maybe I'll pay $9.99 for that month, but I'm not paying for the month after that. I just want to see that fight.
Well, yeah, and I think that speaks to John's problem is that these promoters are making their own deals, and then they're making these in-house fights, and no promoter has a deep enough roster to do this consistently. That's why you've had back-to-back-to-back ESPN main events that have been, frankly, shit. It's just true. And speaking of that,
and Liam Smith is shit.
Well, there you go. This is what you have. John's spot on. Right on the money when he's talking about the fragmentation of the sport. I can understand why somebody's like, oh well, it's bringing, it's giving you more power. It's bringing it to you. It's breaking the power of HBO and Showtime and yada yada yada. Okay, well, let's just keep supplementing my cable bill. Right. Well, you know what I mean? People are still going to pay for Showtime if you're a boxing fan. Sure, you can cut the cord with HBO and, tell them to, go kick rocks, but then what? I got to pay $9.99 for Eddie Hearn's venture, and then, $4.99 for ESPN Plus's app. And then, a lot of people.
Cloud TV. Don't forget Cloud TV.
Hey, what the hell is Cloud TV? How can I watch Gassiev and Usyk this week? I've never even heard of Cloud
$9.99. It's $9.99 a month, and Cloud TV will not give you the free trial for this one. You have to sign up for your $9.99.
Is that the only way I can see Gassiev and Usyk?
That's the only way you can see Gassiev Usyk in the United States.
But I'll pay $9.99 to see Gassiev Usyk. I just don't want to pay $9.99 to see the other shit they're going to give me after that.
Well, that's what you get, man.
But you don't get with Cloud TV. You're not allowed to do it just for the free trial. I don't know if you got to sign up for whatever long, but they've got it right out there on their site, which I didn't even know existed until today or yesterday. That you have to pay the $9.99 and stay with it. They're not going to let you do the DAZN free trial deal or the ESPN Plus free trial deal.
Yeah, but I can still pay $9.99 and then cancel it, right? After I see my fight.
They're saying no. I don't know how they work that out.
Yeah, no, you don't get to do that. Now it's
you don't get to do that with Cloud TV. Hey, this is Cloud TV.
Is it Cloud TV
you don't
or
get to
Clown
do that with Cloud
TV?
TV?
Cloud or Clown?
I said Clown on Twitter today, but it's officially Cloud. But Clown would work better.
Let's look at Cloud TV.
Yeah, well, but this is the thing is I'm not opposed to apps. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
That's the direction in which technology is going. Back in the day, that's actually part of the reason why ESPN has lost so much money, because back in the day, Disney would have it pumped up into your cable costs and they could charge all sorts of money. Now people are like, well, I don't want to watch that crap. Or, just the way the market has dictated things, people have moved away from ESPN plus the injection of politics and whatnot. But I like the thought of having something on the go. I can watch it wherever I like. But who on a Saturday night, if you're wanting to get young kids, you know, a younger demographic to buy in, first off, you're making it confusing because they're you know, different apps. But you know, on a Saturday night, this is what they're going to do. You know, they're going to go to an app and watch this. I'm just not sure. I mean, what you have to do. And it all seems so obvious to us here. Get it on free TV, you know, put it on NBC or ABC or whatever. Go through the ABC, NBC app or whatever it is. Voila, you know, problem solved. But nope, you've got Top Rank doing their own thing, Eddie Hearn doing their own thing, this and that. And it's just, man, the sport just really... as much as I like it, you know, because what it can be at its very best, you know, the Corrales and Castillo moments that you get, but you know, those seem fewer and far in between anymore. You know, what you're getting now is just the sport just carries around a loaded gun and it just shoots at itself in the foot. You know, then you get something cyclical where it's, you know, you got these guys piecing together something from the ashes, and it's never a good enough product. They shoot itself, you know, it shoots itself in the foot with bad judging and corruption, et cetera, stuff like this. It's not a good look.
Yeah, this is big trouble, and I want to make just a couple of points on that theme. Is right that the people who are apologists for what these guys do and their mouthpieces, they attack you when you attack it and say, "Oh, the future is apps and the future is cord cutting." I know that. We know that. But you don't see the NFL making themselves invisible going to an app when people are still watching regular TV. You wait till the vast majority has cut the cord, then you go to app only. Boxing's going to app only right off the bat. Like Jeremiah said, you know, to develop it first, you should have the free NBC or ABC app. Then later on, you get to a pay app. They're going to a pay app right off. You know, this is bogus. This is not to build anything for the future. This is just these streaming services don't have other properties, and they just want to get some money in the meantime to get something going. The other point is Al Heyman, when he was starting PBC, and you heard Dana White even agree, the idea that boxing is undervalued as a property as a whole, ESPN had also bought into that, some with Aram. That idea is true. But the key point about that is boxing is only undervalued as a property as a whole. That's the whole point. It's not undervalued as a property, all fragmented up with HBO having some fighters, Showtime having some fighters, DAZN having some fighters. It's not undervalued that way. With these guys just fighting no-hopers, it's not an undervalued property. So in other words, only if the whole sport is working together is it undervalued compared to MMA or the NFL or NBA. It's not undervalued when it's all fragmented up. So, in other words, Hearn and these other promoters that are doing these things, I think in the way they have it set up with these apps, it's not undervalued. It'll actually be a bad deal because it's too fragmented up. So I think that they'll all fail. And that's the reason. It's not that boxing couldn't make it, but it's got to be together with all these guys fighting each other as if it were, say, one league. Then it's undervalued. It's not undervalued in this way.
Well, the only thing I can see right now is you can get cloud TV, but only if you have a Mac computer.
Well, yeah, there we go.
A lot of viewers.
I was excited because if you could get it, you could get Box Nation and all the British channels, too. I'd be all right with
people in coffee shops at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on their Macs can turn on Usyk-Gassiev. That'll be real big.
Believe it or not,
demographic.
There's like a little computer store down in Aurora where people that are really poor can go get on the internet. So I may just do that Saturday. Gives me something to do. All right, guys. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? We can wrap this up.
Yeah, I'll go real quickly. But
of course you would. You always have something else. Go ahead. Me and John got stuff to do.
Well, why do you even ask if you don't want?
Because I know you've always got something extra. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that it in terms of, you know, there's not everything's abysmal. So the Demetrius Andrade thing, you know, his first opponent looks like it's probably going to be a no-hoper, but I guess he's supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders, and that looks like that's going to come off probably later in the year, and that's not a bad fight.
Is that all you had?
That's all I got. It's a quality middleweight matchup. It doesn't look stylistically, it doesn't look all that appealing, but it's better than Martin Murray versus Billy Joe Saunders, and represents a true test for Billy Joe, and we'll finally get something worthwhile there.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up for tonight. Make sure you catch us next Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, for Inside Boxing Weekly. Remember, you can hear all of our shows now on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.